My name is Farina. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer here at Caltech, and it's my pleasure to kick off the third annual Bill Gross Business Plan Competition, where we try to capture the ingenuity of our students at Caltech, and we know that they are the most inventive and smart students ever in the world in the history of the universe. So today we'll see there, so we received over 70 applications for, which is a huge number for Caltech, only 2,000 students. And we selected 10 finalists that are going to present today. And they're going to be judged by a panel of distinguished entrepreneurs and venture capitalists here. And so I'm going to invite, first of all, I'd like to thank some of our sponsors, A16Z, Stanfield & Bruno, the law firm. And I'm going to pass it on to the reason why this exists with Bill Gross, very famous Pasadena entrepreneur here, and he's going to tell us about what he's up to and how he wants this to start off. Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Fred. Thank you all for coming. A very long time ago, I was a student at Caltech, and I had to make a presentation in a class called E10. And it was a class where you had to talk about something that you worked on in science or engineering to your peers, and I was terrified. I was making loudspeakers at the time, but it was something I knew deeply, something I cared about deeply, but I was still very scared to put together a presentation. I had never done that in high school before. I had no experience public speaking, and it was a really, really powerful moment for me to understand how to take an idea, explain it to others, just like you're all going to do today. And it turns out that was one of the most valuable things I ever learned at Caltech. I learned all the engineering, I learned all the thermo, I learned all the math and all the physics. But the ability to take your idea, crystallize it into a story, and tell it to the world is really, really powerful. Why is it so powerful for entrepreneurship? Well, entrepreneurship, I feel, unlocks human potential. When you form a company where people have shared equity, it enables people to feel like owners, and they'll do things like never, ever before. It's absolutely unbelievable. I remember when I was at Caltech and I was looking up to the seniors, and actually one of my best friends, Maral, is here. I came to Caltech as a freshman, and he was a junior in Reroute House at the time, now Venerable House, and I just remember looking up, look at those people, they're incredible. How can I learn to be like that? And in a company, you get to look at other people and learn how to be like them. And it's really, really incredible shared camaraderie to make something happen. The other incredible thing about entrepreneurship is you can take a problem in the world that you see or that you see others have and find a way to solve it. And right now, the tools for doing that are better than ever before. Like the tools at your disposal are so incredible. Not only the technological tools, the AI tools and others, but your presence at Caltech speaks to the world in a way you can't even imagine. I didn't understand it until I graduated. But your ability to take your idea and your passion, say that you're from Caltech, and tell it to the world to try and make that happen is unbounded. So with that unbounded view, thank you all for submitting 70 applications. The 10 of you who are chosen today, you've already made it through a very high hurdle because all of them were so good. Every one of you deserves an award just for being here. And I can't wait to hear all your presentations personally. But I think that there's a moment in time right now, because of the changes, where you can make a bigger impact on the world than ever before possible. You can touch the whole planet, you can reach everybody in a way that you never could before, and your ideas can really change the world and make the world a better place. So with that, I give you lots of encouragement to have success with your ideas both today, but in the future, and I'd love to make myself available to you. I'm so grateful for everything Caltech did for me. I'd love to try and give back, so my email is bill@idealab.com. You can email me anytime. I'll do my best to get back to you, but I'd love to try and help you be successful in any way you want to do to make the world a better place. Thank you very much.
We need to introduce the judges.
Oh, okay. Let me introduce the three judges. Let me go to the slide right here. I am grateful for the three judges who are judging today because that's a very hard job. All of your presentations are going to be very, very hard to pick out a winner because all of you are winners. But I'm really grateful to Albors, Helen, and Fareed for coming here today, flying in just to help out, to look at these great plans, and to give you feedback on them, to ask you questions about them, and to help in any way afterwards. And then we look forward to their judgment and look forward to giving out prizes afterwards. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Maral, and I run the Innovation Center here at Caltech, and I will be your host today for our third annual Build Gross Business Plan competition. So today you guys will see 10 business plan pitches. Each pitch will be 5 minutes, and it'll be followed by 3 minutes of Q&A from the judges. And then following the presentations, you get to watch the first episode in a video series following tech transfer at Caltech, as well as you get to vote for your fan favorite. So your votes will count as well. And then we hope you all stay for the reception and prize announcements at 5:30. And if you're a competitor and you can't stay, please let one of the staff know. And lastly, the pitches are being recorded and will be available on YouTube following the event. And before we kick things off, I would like to ask everyone to silence their cell phones, please. Just a quick check, much appreciated. And with that, we're going to kick things off. Our first team, Cyclobiome, will be presenting via Zoom on developing genetically engineered microbes to make gold ore extraction both more cost-effective and environmentally sustainable. And with that, please welcome Cyclobiome. Go ahead, Brian.
We are developing microbial innovations to secure domestic critical mineral supply. We're focusing first on one of the precious metals important to California, gold. Since the 1850 California gold rush, we were able to find literal nuggets of gold in mountain streams. That's about enough for one gold ring. But in the past 175 years, we have depleted most of our high-grade ore. So now what you're left with is little tiny gold particles locked up in rock. You would need to process 2 tons of ore, about the same amount of weight as one car, in order to get one gold ring out of that. Demand for gold has been growing over the years. In addition to people liking their gold jewelry, there's also high-tech applications relevant to national security. For example, photovoltaic cells, gold in our AI computer chips, as well as gold in aerospace applications due to its corrosion resistance. Now, it's becoming increasingly more difficult to extract gold from the ore. It's often locked up in a carbonaceous matrix, and there's 2 ways of dealing with that. The first is you roast the gold at 700 Celsius, or you put it in a pressure oxidizer, pretty much a large autoclave. Both of these have really large upfront capital expenditures, as well as high ongoing operating expenses. Additionally, they produce toxic byproducts. For example, roasting produces toxic arsenic fumes. The EPA is not even allowing new permits for roasting. And for pressure oxidation, you run the risk of catastrophic explosion, so it's also hard to get new permits for that as well. There are currently only 5 roasting facilities and 4 pressure oxidation facilities within North America servicing all of our carbonaceous gold needs. We are interested in pioneering an emerging technology known as biooxidation. In this, you use microbes to neutralize carbonaceous material. This will result in lower upfront capital expenditures, lower operating expenses, as well as easier to get new permits. Microbes naturally secrete molecules that degrade carbonaceous material. We will convert these natural compounds into commercializable products. We're in the process of assembling and engineering a library of microbes that are potent oxidizers, and isolated strains are 100% owned by Cyclobiome. We already have a lab space secured and have been operational for 3 months. We have 80+ strains isolated, and then we also have some proof of concept with actual gold samples. If we take untreated gold ore, we treat it with microbial products from 2 of our wild-type strains, we're able to see about a doubling in gold recovery. And this is just our first generation. The idea is to move genes over to commercial expression strains in order to optimize efficiency in the long run. We've also secured our first strategic partner. They're providing technical metallurgy expertise, the initial ore in our samples. They're also providing initial funding as well as benchmarks for additional milestone funding. They also are supporting our initial IP by paying for it, and they will have an exclusive license for our gold application. And they also have a commercialization business model built around licensing out gold refinery IP, so we see them as our faster go-to-market. They also are interested in helping us get on-site in a pilot at an actual mine. We're aiming to unlock a multi-billion-dollar industry. There's about $13 billion in revenue per year in North America from just refractory gold ore or the more difficult to extract ore. We assume a 50% technology fit. We're looking at 2 customer profiles. The first one are mines that are too distant from centralized roasting or pressure oxidation facilities. The other ones are mines that switch to biooxidation to reduce costs. We will charge pretty similarly to what mines are paying for reagents, but we're going to capitalize upon that unlocked additional gold recovery yield, which we take a small amount as profit for a service obtainable market of $100 million per year. Now, relative to our competitors, we're using an enzymatic approach. This is differentiated from the live bacteria that many of them are using. Live bacteria can actually die off in some of these commercial settings, and that makes them a lot less predictable. Additionally, our competitors are going after other metals, copper, nickel, critical minerals. I would like to point out, though, that they've had some success recently fundraising, show that there is actually investor appetite for this type of technology. We've hit some of our initial R&D goals and are working towards scaling up and hitting the KPIs to unlock additional funding from our strategic partner. In the second half of 2026, we're aiming for less than $25 per ton operating expense, about 70% gold recovery, and some provisional patent filing. First half of 2027, we're looking for a Bureau of Land Management as well as EPA permits to support our first pilot scale study, as well as bumping up to 80% recovery based upon our new engineered strains, which will have patents. Second half of 2027, we're aiming to be in 3 pilot sites, have 90% recovery, and apply our technology to a secondary metal. I'm joined by an amazing team. I have my co-founder, S. Ansari, who has 20 years of microbiology R&D, has analyzed over 100 genomes and transcriptomes. I personally, here at Caltech for my PhD, have engineered over 1,000 strains and have been deeply involved in the entrepreneurial community. We're also joined by Kathy, our business lead, who has 8 years of R&D experience, 5 years in venture capital, specifically investing in synthetic biology. Collectively, we have the scientific and business expertise in order to make Cyclobiome a success. Thank you.
Judges, do you have any questions?
Thanks, Brian. Can you talk a little bit about the time that it takes for these enzymes to currently degrade and how that fits in a normal platform for processing?
Yeah, so based upon literature, people have treated for up to 2 weeks. The samples I showed, we treated for 48 hours. Your game plan is actually to improve this through library screening of better enzymes, increase secretion, and we're going to move over to expression strain. So the idea is to get it down closer to the 3 to 4 hour time range, which is more comparable to what people are used to doing. Sometimes with biooxidation, you can leave them in a tank for a day or two, but that's just additional cost, and you're not really helping with the throughput.
Brian, I had a question on the enzymes versus the microbes. Could you walk me through why enzymes are better in this case than the competition?
Yeah, so when you're treating a large volume of ore, there tends to be variation in the actual physical chemistry, pH, temperature. If you're thinking about you're under 100 pounds of ore, you really don't have conditions that are conducive to living bacteria. So oftentimes you have to think about oxidation, you have to think about byproducts. By just having enzymes that we could then go and engineer to be more stable, add more disulfide bonds, we actually think that we could overcome some of the dying off limitations that live bacteria do have.
Two questions. First is the most direct competitor on your competition slide you said was public. What is the current revenue or size of that company, seeing as it's seems like doing the same thing in a different way?
Yeah, so this company, they're really large in Europe. They also produce a lot of the actual physical tanks associated with the processing of gold ore. So it's not a direct comparison, but they do over $500 million in sales of these tanks. But they've developed biooxidation specifically for gold that they're using in their tanks.
And then the second is on your roadmap and sort of path. Is there any way that pulling capital forward would allow this to accelerate, or do you think that this is sort of a fixed timeline and just are there other constraints to timeline? What could you do to go faster?
Yeah, I mean, additional funding is always great. We can speed up the engineering. We can also contract with more third-party providers in order to do some of our strain engineering and our production. There is a certain amount of time required for permitting, and also when we send samples out to third parties, they usually have a 3 to 4 week timeline. But if we do have additional people working on this, we can explore more enzymes. We're starting off, let's say, with 1 or 2 or 3. Eventually, it's going to be a concoction of enzymes that we'll be adding. So having more people on our team can help accelerate the exploration process, and also can help us move towards our second metal a little quicker. We are constrained right now just based on resources to just focus on gold. We can focus on silver, platinum, palladium if we have additional capital.
Okay, Brian, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we're out of time. So thank you, judges, and thank you again, Brian.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Greenloop Fuels, who will present their work on synthesizing sustainable aviation fuel tailored for regional airports. Please come on up.
Hi, I'm Noah,
And I'm Nora.
and we're Greenloop Fuels.
We make sustainable fuel the cheaper fuel.
Today, aviation fuel faces three major challenges. The three are a costly cycle. First, conventional jet fuel is price volatile and expensive. Recent headlines emphasize the need for sustainable aviation fuel, SAF, for energy security and for sustainability. Second, SAF demand is outpacing SAF supply. With European mandates and U.S. goals and tax credits, even $1 per gallon with the big beautiful bill, demand will only increase. Third, current SAF supply chains leave out regional airports. Feedstocks are in the Midwest, but plants are abroad and customers are mainly in California. One SAF expert even told me that a regional airport in Vail, Colorado is paying 20% markup for SAF made for LAX.
Our solution is to bring fuel production closer to where it's actually needed, such as Midwestern regional airports. By localizing SAF, we stabilize fuel cost. By distributing hydroprocessed esters and fatty acids, HEFA plants, we increase SAF supply. And by co-locating HEFA plants with feedstock facilities, we eliminate inefficient supply chains. This makes the sustainable option the affordable option, which was the biggest factor according to 5 customers that we talked to. Greenloop Fuels uses the most mature and reliable way to produce SAF, which is the HEFA pathway. The key constraint in the HEFA is feedstock. That's why we focus on soybean oil. Soybean oil is the cheapest oil feedstock. It accounts for over half of domestic SAF feedstock, and it has a high jet fuel yield of 70%. Additionally, China stopped buying for us, so we have a high supply. On the green and orange dots on the left, you can see where we have proposed HEFA facilities. And on the right, the green markers show where we have soybean oil plants. By co-locating the two, we eliminate the feedstock transportation altogether.
Our goal is to place one HEFA facility per 5 to 10 regional airports, as you see here in the map. The 5 red A's represent regional airports in Iowa, which require 2 to 4 million gallons per year of fuel. The green B is Platinum Crushed Soybean Oil Plant, which outputs 60 million gallons of soybean oil per year. Therefore, at a conservative 2/3 yield of soybean oil to jet fuel, we get 40 million gallons per year of SAF, sufficient to supply 5 to 10 regional airports. By co-locating production with feedstock, we are eliminating feedstock transportation and significantly reducing fuel transportation. Serving only regional airports within this 60-mile radius, as shown in the map, can result in up to 20% lower fuel costs. Considering our market size, our total addressable market is about $92 billion, calculated from the total American jet fuel consumption. Our serviceable addressable market is about $3.2 billion, calculated from us capturing 25% of the soybean oil currently going towards biofuels. And our serviceable attainable market is $400 million, calculated from serving about 20 regional airports in the next 5 years with plants.
Conventional jet fuel is unreliable and cost volatile. Existing companies like Nest and World Energy produce SAF, but they only supply to large airport hubs. As World Energy only produces SAF in California and Nest only produces in Europe. Nobody is SAF compliant, localizes production to feedstocks, or serves regional airports. But with your help, we can solve these issues. Our next steps are clear and staged. In the first 3 months, we will focus on customer discovery and site selection in the Midwest. Then we will move into feasibility, partnerships, and securing feedstock agreements. Within 2 years, we will have a pilot plant to supply 1 regional airport, and then within 5, our first commercial facility will serve 5 to 10 regional airports.
We are chemical engineers with experience in energy systems and process scale-up. I have experience in lab process scale-up and also converting carbon dioxide into fuels. And Nora, as a 5th-generation rancher, brings connections to agriculture and has extensive experience in energy storage applications. Together, We are a fearless team with the teamwork and the technical expertise needed to solve real-world problems.
With expensive conventional fuel, a favorable regulatory landscape, and efficient and reliable feedstock, we're prepared to make sustainable fuel the cheaper fuel. Thank you.
Happy to take questions.
Judges, do you have any questions?
Are there any regulatory headwinds or tailwinds behind you that support the transition for both a local solution as well as the increasing use of a sustainable fuel option?
Yes, so as I mentioned, there's been tax credits. In the Inflation Reduction Act, it was $1.75 per gallon. It's down to $1 with the big, beautiful bill. But recently, dealing with the energy crisis we're dealing with, even Trump has said, and so we're seeing some bipartisan agreement that SAF can be helpful for energy security, not having to deal with complicated global supply chains. Additionally, HEFA is fully regulated. Permits generally do take about 2 years, but there are HEFA plants, and companies have been able to start producing SAF even here in the US. But the HEFA is the only one that's been scalable to this point, the HEFA route. There are 9 other approved pathways, though.
Can you walk me through the regional airport decision and exactly like what the advantage there is versus, selling to the biggest buyers, for instance?
Yeah, so first thing we were thinking about was scale. With the HEFA plants and the feedstocks, if we are just focusing on soybean oil, additionally we do want to move to other vegetable oils. Another one is used cooking oil or animal fats. But the scale was the initial reason. If we are going to just use soybean oil, to make it cost effective, we figured we would just focus on regional airports. So that's where we are at this point. Eventually, we do want to move to other feedstocks as well, which may make us scalable to larger airports as well.
So when you say regional airports, you're talking about a centralized approach,
Yeah,
right?
so
I think that's what your question was, right?
So the reason we've went with a centralized approach and then moving from the fuels from the HEFA plant to the airports is because of mainly a density argument. It's a lot more costly to move feedstock around, but it's a lot better to move the fuel around. And also, the regional airports are fairly concentrated to the soybean oil plants in this part of the country. And so that's why we've decided to focus on this part of the country and regional airports. We're talking for now airports that are about 20 to 40 flights per day. And a lot of them are getting their fuels from Milwaukee and Chicago. And so we're saving about 200 to 300 miles per airport, as well as the pipelines. A lot of this fuel isn't synthesized in the Midwest. It's synthesized in Texas, Louisiana.
And that's time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have Haggle AI, who will be presenting on their AI-based negotiation co-pilot that's aimed at helping buyers navigate pricing in high uncertainty transactions. Let's invite them to the stage.
We've all been there before, accepting the price we know is way too high, just to stop the stress of a negotiation. We're Haggle AI, the first strategic AI negotiator built to fight for your wallet on every deal. Meet David, a Caltech senior. He just paid full price for a couch on Marketplace just to avoid the stress of an awkward tax wrap. But the real financial blow hits him next week, his first salary call. David is smart, of course, but he's facing this massive information asymmetry. He's standing alone against corporations armed with professional data and decades of experience. For a new grad, this anxiety tax can easily exceed $10,000 in year one. Haggle is David's shield. It's a market expert that identifies fair values instantly, a live body that suggests the perfect tactical replies, and for high-stake calls, the personalized voice AI that speaks on his behalf. We hit the campus and surveyed 60 students. 82% of them have already signed up for the waitlist of our demo. Our peers aren't just waiting for a number. They're looking for a tool that finally fights for them. So why can't we just use ChatGPT? Because general-purpose AI suffers from agreeability bias. They're trained to be nice to the system, which means they're giving exactly the moment the seller pushes back. And we trained the Haggle brand using reinforcement learning from verifiable reward, or RLVR. We didn't just give it a prompt. We gave it a mathematical objective to maximize the user's surplus. We took Haggle into the wild for live negotiations on Facebook Marketplace against real human seller. While our team and the famous frontier model, including ChatGPT, hit the ceiling under 30%, we crashed it with a 46% negotiation discount. At just 30 billion parameters, we've proven that to win the negotiation, you don't need a general purpose giant AI. You need a strategic one that actually puts your wallet first. The other side already has AI. Landlord use RealPage to hike the rent, and HR department use Workday to keep the offer salary low. Those AI are built to fight for their profit. And Haggle is the first agent 100% aligned with the individual. We're the only one at the table whose math is entirely on your side. We're starting exactly where anxiety tax hits our peers first. Stage 1 is a free launch at Caltech and UCLA. Every win on Marketplace or eBay fuels our data flywheel, making the model smarter and getting Haggle into everyone's hand. In stage 2, we tackles the high-stake negotiations like rent or salary. Here, Haggle acts as a life coach. It whispers in your ear, hey, they're testing your flow. Use 5 seconds of silence to shift the pressure back to that. Haggle handles the pressure, and you keep the money. Our business model is simple. We only win when our users win. After the free trial, for every negotiation, we charge a small flat fee per deal. And for life-changing negotiations like rent or salary, there is a no-win, no-fee guarantee. We also have a gratitude loop where users can charge and tip us after a massive win to keep Haggle free for the next generations of students with their tip. We're starting in this $228 billion re-commerce market where 93% of Americans have already shopped. By capturing just 0.05% of those deals, we'll get to a 5 million or nearly 6 million annual revenue. From there, our growth explodes to 40 million annual revenue within this e-commerce market alone. And as we expand into the multi-trillion-dollar rent and salary market, our potential more than triples. Haggle turns the anxiety tax into a scalable, multi-hundred-million-dollar business. Our team bridges math, systems, and economics. I'm Claire, the CEO of Haggle and a math major with AI research already published at iClear and Triple AI. I'm joined by Lele, our technical lead, and Sharon, who handles our economic integrations. We're built to win. With this investment, we're accelerating into nationwide scale. We're allocating the capital across our full-stack technical support, the product marketing, and the trust and compliance our users deserve. This roadmap leads us with 40 million annual revenue as we dominate the negotiation market by 2028. Haggle is ending the anxiety tax and putting money back to our users' pocket. Join us in making strategic negotiation available for everyone. Thank you. I'm happy to take any question you might have.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit about the difficulty in transitioning to those more complex negotiations. I mean, obviously rent and salary require a lot more proprietary data, especially for rent. That's a little bit challenging, at least it was in the past. So talk to me about how you're going to get access to the data that's really going to empower people, not just locally, where you may have pay transparency, for example, but across the US.
Thank you. There are several ways to answer this question. The first one is for the technical part, which you just mentioned, how to get those data. We might cooperate with some apps. For example, there's an app called Apartment, which calculates the average rent across different districts because they want the high volume for transaction through their app. So they want to keep their users, which we can help them because we get lower price for those people who want to rent. And we have different features. So in order to transition from the everyday Facebook market deal to a rent or salary call, there have to be more features like real-time voice AI. That's something our technical team have to be working on. And thirdly is the marketing. We'll partner with different market experts, which one of them is through our Caltech summer internship, which we just got for entrepreneurship, where we'll cooperate with more experts on marketing and get more funds for us to market into those markets. So I think we can build a user base through word of mouth through those small value but high volume transactions on marketplace, and our users can take Haggle into their pocket to the high value transactions like rent and salary as well.
Curious how much of the improvement that you've seen from your model comes from behavioral difference versus like data advantage, if that makes sense. So is it the negotiating tactics and the style and understanding that, or is it having benchmarks and understanding prices?
Absolutely. The real-time growth will come from two parts. The first part is just the negotiation tactic. The second part will be the data flywheel that's come into it. And this one is achieved solely from the tactic. So we train our model using RLVR, which is just a fraction of the cost from my student funding alone, which is below $500. And we compete it against ChatGPT 5.4, which is the latest model they just released this March from OpenAI. And we win them by a big margin. One of the tactics I can raise as an example is they will open with a very low price to test the flow of the seller and gradually increase it to get a big deal. And those general models suffer from agreeability bias, as I mentioned. They're too nice, so they wouldn't be aggressive at all. But we bias towards our users, so we get a big surplus. And as we advance into the future to the markets like rent and salary, we'll definitely get more expert data, like Ms. McBride have mentioned. So those will fuel this to get a more advantage over the traditional models.
I had a question on, okay, we have, keep going. Okay. I had a question on your growth strategy, because let's just assume the models work, you get the data you need. You mentioned you want to like go through UCLA and Caltech to grow the platform. I would have thought like you would take one of the verticals, let's say like jobs, like let's say LinkedIn jobs or something, and then work on that across, not to roll it out like campus based. Like, can you walk me through the growth strategy?
Of course. I think your suggestion is pretty good, but I'll tell you why we choose this growth path. First of all, we want to give back to our community, which is Caltech, so we'll give student free trials, trial them. And also, the e-commerce market like eBay and Marketplace have perfect properties that we're looking for. First is high volume. High volume of transactions will build us a big user base, and people come to trust us, and they can try those in their rent and salary as well in the later stage. And secondly, there are a lot of price inconsistency in e-commerce market. So there is a big room that our Haggle can negotiate over. Thank you.
I'm so sorry I have to cut you off now. All right, thank you so much. Thank you, Haggle AI. All right, next up we have SureStep, and they are focused on improving accessibility through computer vision technology that's designed to assist individuals who are blind. Please welcome SureStep.
Hello, I'm Umar. I'm a freshman at Caltech, and I'm building SureStep. Our vision is to empower blind individuals to navigate with confidence by building an intelligent cane that helps them better understand their surroundings. Sorry. I'm sorry about that, yeah. No, it's fine. Okay. This is the white cane. It's one of the most commonly used mobility aids by the blind. How they use it is while they are walking, they will sweep it in front of them so that if the cane contacts an object, they will know that it's in their path. However, it has three key issues. First of all, it cannot identify objects. It can only see if they are there. Secondly, since it relies on physical contact, its range is inherently limited. Thirdly, it lacks the rich visual feedback that our eyes give. And because of that, only about 10% of blind individuals use the white cane alone. The rest of them use it in conjunction with a sighted guide or a guide dog. So how do I address this problem? To find that out, I had to get out of the building and do some primary research. I interviewed about 20 blind individuals and asked them about their relationship with the white cane, some of the difficulties they have with navigation, etc. And the lessons I learned were crucial. First of all, the white cane alone is insufficient for object recognition, and most blind individuals rely on their sense of touch to make up for that. And additionally, I learned that if I want to improve the white cane, my goal should not be to replace it completely, but to extend it, because the white cane is very good at keeping blind individuals safe from hazards, and it's a necessary fallback for any software I would need to build. So my solution involves using computer vision. Object recognition is a very classic computer vision task, and it's no longer limited by the physical reach of the cane because it relies on the camera. And additionally, computer vision techniques can be used to detect objects' direction and estimate their distance, creating a mental map. The realization of this is the SureStep cane. It's a small box attached to a white cane that uses text-to-speech to describe nearby objects. Here, I have a blind volunteer using an early prototype of the SureStep cane. Some near future improvements would be to make the hardware smaller and also to replace the speaker with open-ear headphones. There are no existing smart canes on the market which have object detection capabilities. However, there are smart glasses, notably the Orcam II and the Envision glasses. However, the SureStep cane is the only one with out-of-box and offline object detection capabilities, and additionally, since it's mounted on the cane, it has safety benefits that the glasses do not. Additionally, the form factor of smart glasses requires very small and very lightweight hardware, and that drives up costs, while on the cane, there's much more freedom to design. And that leads to an estimated cost for the SureStep cane of $750 in comparison to $2,500 or $3,500 for smart glasses. The total addressable market is the global blind assistive technology market, which is valued at $7 billion. The serviceable addressable market is the North America BAT market at $2 billion, and we aim to capture 10% of that. The initial steps for the company would be first to build a team to transition the current prototype into a proper V1, which we hope to sell for $750 per unit. And our initial marketing will be through events such as White Cane Day events, but also through government partnerships through organizations such as the California Department of Rehabilitation, which has programs for assistive technology lending, financing, etc. From there, we would move on to wider marketing through assistive technology retail and eventually add a subscription model to incorporate maps and public transit. Our initial team will consist of a part-time CEO and 2 founding engineers, one for electrical engineering, one for software. And then from there, we'll add marketing and sales, customer service, and QA. For the first year, the initial investment that we would need would be $380K. This involves the cost for 600 units of inventory and 1 year salary for the CEO and engineers. And the goal would be to sell all units for $450K revenue. In conclusion, the blind assistive technology market is a real market that has a real unmet need. And the white cane has stayed constant for almost 100 years. But today, not only do we have powerful computer vision models, we have the advancements in edge AI hardware to run those models directly on the cane. The best time to revolutionize the white cane is today. Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about your go-to-market. Who are you going to go after first to get the early adopters for this technology?
The initial marketing strategy we were planning was first through events like White Cane Day, because these are attended by many blind individuals, and other assistive technology firms often do marketing there. So there, the plan would be to get the initial word of mouth, and then from there, expanding to partnering with government organizations would allow increasing the reach of the product, because they have programs such as assistive technology demonstration, etc.
Does this work completely on device, or does it, you mentioned that the others needed to be cloud connected. How are you doing that?
Yes, one of the main strengths of this is that it's completely encapsulated within the cane. There's no internet connection, etc. Because adding internet connection requires, for example, proximity to Wi-Fi or a cell phone, so that makes it much simpler of a product.
Have you talked to people who use canes, and like, what was the feedback they gave you?
Yes. So when I interviewed some blind individuals, one of the questions I asked was, some of the difficulties they had with the white cane. And I also showed them my prototype at the time, and I asked for their feedback. And based on that, I developed further features, such as I noticed that many of them wanted detection of distances and directions, because it helps them orient themselves in a room, and etc. So this was built very much in sync with user feedback.
Any other questions? All right, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so Hessian Dynamics will be presenting on their cybersecurity algorithm built to protect cyber-physical systems. Please join me in welcoming Hessian Dynamics. Oh, thank you.
That's a lot of people. Wow. All right, so I'm Arya. I'm the co-founder of Hessian Dynamics. We're building an anomaly detection layer for autonomous systems. So, so autonomous systems, what does that mean? Imagine your drone or your Waymo or your power grid or your microgrid. It's any piece of hardware that's controlled by a piece of software. It's a cyber-physical system, kind of. So as we expand to these autonomous systems becoming more and more ingrained in our lives, the Waymos, what I just mentioned. Nope. Why is this? Oh, sorry. One more time. There we go. Yeah. It's going to remain imperative to maintain their operational viability and their security. And the security aspect of it, especially in OT, is very outdated. Traditional methods take minutes to hours to detect any sort of intrusion, and there's no real way of determining whether any fault is associated with the actual intrinsic hardware itself or if it's a malicious action. These numbers, $10.5 trillion cybercrime loss and $400 billion in OT cyber risk, are going to expand as these systems become more and more ingrained in our societies, right? So with that, it's going to remain imperative that we watch the physics of the system, watch what this physics is actually doing in comparison to the command response, so that way we can distinguish between whether the hardware fault is associated with the intrinsic hardware itself, or if it's actually a malicious action. Someone's taking over your system and is causing some sort of damage. And there are plenty of real-world examples of this. There was a Jeep Cherokee hack in 2015. Researchers were able to take control over some cars, Tesla hacks. There was a Ukraine power grid attack, caused $100 million in damage in 2015, spoofing and jamming in drones in Ukraine. It's all over the place. So traditional IT-based monitoring and passive detection, they miss these zero-day attacks, these covert manipulations where you take advantage of unknown software vulnerabilities. So what you have to do is watch the physics of the system, compare it to what the command is telling it to do, and if there's a discrepancy in that, you can then identify what the cause of the fault was. So differentiate between fault and attack. And because you look at the physical response, as soon as something goes wrong, you can identify it in milliseconds. So this is something that we've developed over the last year or so. We validated it with the Canadian Department of National Defense. So what we do is that we have this algorithm. We create a digital twin of any system in question. It's a physics-based model. The digital twin basically is trained on the nominal data of your system, how it should operate, and then it reads the data that's in your actual autonomous system, your drone, your car, whatever. And then it compares the two, the digital twin with the actual actuator and sensor data in real time. So you detect. And then depending on the size of the residual between what the actual system is doing and the digital twin, you can actually localize whether the fault is intrinsic to the hardware or a malicious action. And then if it is a malicious action, you can correct it. You can then take the state and move it back to its original nominal state, back onto the system. It's like a loop. So, and this is instant because you watch the physics. So our solution is control aware. Response time is in milliseconds. We catch zero-day attacks, and it works across any cyber-physical system: industrial, automotive, aerospace, robotics, energy, etc. Your traditional OT vendors, the guys who have IPO'd, Darktrace, Nozomi, well, Nozomi not yet, but Drago's Clarity, they take minutes to hours only to detect, and they require a human in the loop to actually correct. So this was part of work that we validated with the Canadian DND on a $1.5 million project. We implemented it on their naval vessels, the Tails-class naval vessel, and we were able to localize their malicious actions in milliseconds at TRL 8, or sorry, 5 to 6. 8 is for drones. So your phone, for example, is at TRL 9. So with that, since incorporating last month, we raised $1 million from South Park Commons. We are in active conversations with various pilot friends of ours, or various pilots, including one major defense prime. And we've taken on 2 advisors. Reza has been with us since day 0, was the COO of Dusty Robotics, Series C company in industrial robotics.
Anantha was formerly the VP of Autonomous Driving at GM and the VP of Engineering of their Level 5 Autonomous Driving at Lyft. And that's my co-founder. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here today, but he got his PhD in this space. And we're both Southport Commons Founder Fellows. I'm a Pear Fellow. And yeah, I guess I'm early, but, oh, time, okay. No, I'm time. All right, that's it.
Thank you so much. Judges, do you have any questions?
So how does your pricing model work for events that are rare but very impactful?
So for example, let's say Waymo wanted to, so Waymo is different. They're L4 autonomy, they would build this in-house. But let's say that we were talking to BMW, which is L2, L2++. And they, to build a team, and the way that these automotive vendors work is that they have two teams. They have a security team and they have a reliability team. So the security team, if they, let's say, required $5 million to do this, you would then charge them a discounted version of that, depending on however you build you build it for them, and then slash some X% to build it for them if they were to go to an external vendor. If you were to do this, let's say, en masse for a drone system, you would deploy it per drone, especially for fleets of these. Yeah.
What is the class of problems for which this is a great way to do detection versus the ones where it's not, if that makes sense? Like, where does physics-based detection really shine?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So, oh, it's not there. So I took it down, but we had a system, a demo for drones. So in defense environments, there's no, I mean, there are, but the solutions existing are very poor. For drones, for example, spoofing and jamming are taking out fleets of drones in Ukraine. If you go online, you can find that these tiny drones have miles of fiber optic cable attached to each one, just to cure these spoofing and jamming attacks. So drones is perfect for it, because traditional methods, if let's say you cut off, it's an RF denied environment, and you cut off the connection between ground and control, you resort to vision-based systems, and those are just terrible. It doesn't work. So this is a physics-based model where you can you have different waypoints associated with your drone to go to a target, for example, and you would basically watch the physics of it, so that way if it deviates from that waypoint, you correct it immediately back. So drone environments, to answer the question.
This field of anomaly detection is used for like parts that are not functioning and in complex systems as well. So how did you come up with this as the application versus anomaly detection in sort of production?
Yeah, so that's another good question. So when we were talking to different people in this space, robotics, automotive, they all have different needs. So watching the physics of it, differentiating between whether it's hardware fault or anomaly detection is very dependent on the industry that you're in. So when we were talking to drones, spoofing and jamming, the cyber attack aspect of it. But if you were to talk to, let's say, drones for commercial applications, identifying and localizing hardware faults to the exact point of hardware, that's the most important. The broad anomaly is for both cyber attack and hardware fault, depending on the industry.
I'm sorry, but we're out of time. All right, thank you so much. Thank you to Hessian Dynamics. All right, so up next is LipoVision, and they're working on a non-invasive real-time ultrasound imaging to better understand RNA therapeutic delivery and expression. Please welcome LipoVision.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jiwon Yang, and I'm a sixth-year soon-to-graduate student from Shapiro Lab here at Caltech. During last summer, I was working on a lipid nanoparticle formulation and delivery problem during my internship at Amgen, and it was actually through that internship that I learned about this major problem in the pharmaceutical industry, and that became the start of LipoVision today. So here's a one-sentence version of what we're trying to do. We make RNA delivery visible. Let me explain why this actually matters. So about 90% of the drug candidates fail during the clinical development because of three critical pain points. First, there's no real-time visibility. The teams inject the drugs, and since then, they're flying blind. There's no live view of where the payloads go or whether they're being expressed in the right tissue. Secondly, because of this issue, we need extra animal cohorts. To check delivery at each time point, you need to sacrifice a separate group of mice or monkeys, and that is expensive, slow, and ethically costly. Third, the toxicity shows up too late. The off-target expression is often discovered only at terminal endpoints and after you've already committed months to a formulation. And the cumulative cost of this blindness is staggering and burning up to, teams burn up to over $1 million on a blind iteration, not even counting the opportunity cost of delayed timelines. So why is now the right time for the LipoVision? There are three forces that are converging. First, since Moderna is a huge success, there are over 1,200 RNA drugs currently under development, with more than half using LNP as a delivery vehicle. This is a massive and growing market. Secondly, the FDA is actively pushing to reduce animal testing, and teams need tools that extract more data from fewer animals, which is exactly what longitudinal imaging enables. And third, and most importantly, there's an urgent customer pull. We've done extensive customer discovery, and the message was unambiguously the same, that we need live expression readouts that is less complicated than what it currently is. So here's how LipoVision works. Today's approach is we inject the drugs, we wait for weeks in a black box, sacrifice these animals, and do a tissue analysis. This is destructive and slow, but with LipoVision, we can package the gas vesicle mRNA directly inside our lipid nanoparticle, and when the LNP delivers its payload and target cells take it up, these cells express gas vesicles. These are hollow protein nanostructures that scatter ultrasound waves. Then with any standard ultrasound system, you get a live signal showing you exactly where the expression is happening. No radiation, no specialized equipment, no biopsies. And why will customers actually care or pay for this? Well, there are three numbers that'll tell the story. We can reduce the animals up to 50% fewer because we can image the same animal over time instead of having to sacrifice separate cohorts at each time point. And this will lead to reducing it to 30 to 40 days faster as expressions happen within days, and shorter validation cycles mean that we can make earlier go or no-go decisions, which is everything in preclinical development. And this leads to up to $200K to $1 million saved per programs over 5 to 10 optimization cycles typically used in the RNA program. And our beachhead customers are the preclinical RNA delivery teams at companies like Novartis and Merck, who are already working with LNPs and actively looking for better tools. So the market in the preclinical imaging is large, focused, and accessible, valued at up to about $3 billion. And our initial serviceable market with 10 pilot customers will give us a near-term opportunity up to $5 to $15 million. Our revenue model starts with a paid pilot studies and a sponsored co-development as a CRO agent, generating revenue while we're building validation. Then we can scale up through platform licensing, implementation support, and repeat studies. This market is particularly attractive because it seamlessly fits into our customers' existing LNP workflows and ultrasound hardware. So there's nothing new to buy, just a new capability to unlock. We've mapped the competitive landscape carefully, and LipoVision is the only platform that is simultaneously expression-specific, real-time, non-invasive, radiation-free and safe, easy to adopt, and capable of deep tissue imaging. Our defensibility comes from a Caltech patent in a gas vesicle technology licensed through OTTCP. And our long-term mode is a programmable GV biosensor platform where we can engineer these gas vesicles to light up not only in the presence, but also at specific biological signals. So where are we today? We've already confirmed the RNA-based transfection and the ultrasound detection of the GV expression, and we're currently working up to LNP delivery of these mRNA with in vivo mouse studies planned next. I'm building this as a founder out of the Shapiro lab with Professor Mikhail Shapiro as our scientific advisor, who is a pioneer in acoustic biosensing. And here's our 12-month plan. We'll start with optimizing into an in vivo system, leading up to 1 or 2 pilot studies with initial pharma partners, and we'll identify early customers and raise $2 million seed round. So my ask today is for the Bill Gross price to directly accelerate our Q1 and Q2 milestones, as this is a critical de-risking stage that turns a published science into a fundable company. So in one sentence, one line, the LipoVision makes invisible visible so that the best RNA drugs can reach to patients faster. Thank you.
Judges, any questions?
I can start. So are you thinking localized injection or are you thinking systemic?
It's going to be, I'm imagining a systemic injection because that is the way the eventual therapeutics are getting delivered.
Yeah, but there are a lot of therapeutics that are like local injection. Mm-hmm. Why not focus on local injection? Because then you can actually see the distribution locally.
Initially, we can definitely use that to have as a kind of a control to ensure that it's being expressed. But ultimately, leading up to the actual RNA therapeutics, usually that gets systemically delivered and usually accumulates in liver at this point. But there are more and more targeted LNP therapeutics that attempts to deliver to different organs, and I think that's where this technology will really shine.
I don't know much about the science, so I'll ask a different question. I would love to understand how you're thinking about this the business model at scale for this. Makes sense that on the pilots, it's sort of like just for the capabilities, but like, how does this work at success? Like, how are you charging for it? Are you selling? What are you selling? What exactly is the thing you deliver, and how do you charge for it?
So initially, as we mentioned, it's going to be a pilot studies that we're directly at a contract. But once these platform is established, we anticipate to kind of build up into a reagent that we can sell as a supply to build up, and as well as implement the licensing support, platform licensing. That's going to be the way we will scale up. Exactly.
So talk to me about the sensitivity and the relationship between the amount of RNA dose that you would receive versus the bubbles. Mm-hmm. The reason we like SPECT, not PET, but we love SPECT for preclinical imaging is that you do have a linear relationship, and it's very sensitive and also has excellent resolution capabilities. So contrast that a little bit to ultrasound bubbles.
Wonderful question. There is definitely some differences in terms of sensitivity, and we'll have to scale optimize these constructs to maximize capability, and that's going to be our Q1 phase, where we're going to verify this in vitro and leading up to in vivo. It's definitely great that you mentioned the SPECT, but which requires a specific facility or a specific instrumentation, and it's quite expensive to run. In contrast to ultrasound, where we can run things, well, the probe these days are a couple $1,000s at most. So, and most hospitals and imaging facilities already own ultrasound, so we can build up on it. This is a great, but it is definitely a great point that you mentioned specificity, but it is something that we can optimize through the genetic construct optimization, which as the gas vesicles are.
Sorry, you're out of time. Thank you, LipoVision. All right, so up next we have SAAI, who will be introducing a word processor, which is has built-in AI tools designed to remain under teacher guidance and control. With that, let's welcome SAAI.
All right, hello everybody and good afternoon. My name is Yash Kakade.
And I'm Steven Romero.
And we're excited today to pitch you SAAI. All right, so we're both current Caltech undergrads here, but more importantly, we both have siblings who are in high school. So the problem we're currently seeing in middle school and high schoolers is when they go to write an essay, is for them to use AI is very easy to just finish the essay and just upload to AI and submit it on their behalf, right? Teachers can't tell what's authentic or who's written what. And nothing is stopping, this is critically ruining critical thinking skills for all students, right? We're not only ruining kids' critical thinking skills, but they're not developing creativity. Teachers can't tell what is written or AI or not, and this is forcing teachers for everything to be handwritten or to just block AI websites. But this isn't a real solution, right? Teachers are forced to make this binary choice whether to ban AI completely and not make everything pencil and paper, or to let them just go free roam and just let them use AI on everything, right? We need a choice that like where students can learn how to use AI responsibly and something that teachers can trust. Enter SAAI. So we've built this word processor with built-in AI features that's controlled by teachers. So first off, this is a fully locked down environment in which teachers can verify that nothing's AI generated. So students can't go ahead and paste in a bunch of AI generated content. Even if a student tries to type in a word at a time, it'll be constantly updated and checked. And if the content is seen as AI, it'll be flagged and sent to the teacher. So the teacher has some features here that they can control in addition, so students can learn how to use AI in a friendly way. So for example, you have grammar or autocomplete here, right? For a student, this is what it kind of looks like, very similar to Google Docs with the AI assistance on the right side.
Yeah, so we're entering a pretty big market, which is the US public school system, and that encapsulates around 49.5 million students K through 12. But we primarily want to focus on the 26.5 million students that are in the grades 6 through 12, where we see that writing volume and AI misuse risk are at its peak. We're not assuming full outreach and implementation of our tools yet into the US public school system, but our near-term goal is just around 100,000 students, which gives us a small and realistic benchmark goal to reach. And then here's our simple business model where we see it's proven by a SaaS model as shown here with a $5 per student per year annual fee, which is similar to other educational tools such as like Canvas or Gradescope. And then here's our market adoption where we see we first want to outreach to pilots. So I want to start with a small cohort of writing intensive teachers that create a fast, low risk entry point into the market. And then we want to prove the integrity of our product. So basically demonstrate that students are actually submitting authentic writing work, and then also log any sort of their AI usage that they're using, and then show that our environment is controlled and assisted. And then we want to scale by district, so expand from pilots, teachers to curriculum leaders and IT for a district-wide rollout of our product. And this is proven and shown to be used in different schools to actually adopt these educational tools.
All right, so let's take a quick look of what current solutions exist and what teachers and students are currently using. So in the bottom left here, we have things that don't use any AI assistance features and are very not secure. So we have Google Classroom, Word, and Canvas. And to be quite frankly honest, like it's very easy to just go ahead and cheat and upload an AI-generated content in here, right? The only current secure solutions that exist are like the things like the SAT, Gradescope, and Turnitin. But here, Gradescope and Turnitin don't have any necessary where they're checking for AI constantly. It's more so just a time-based lockdown. Enter a solution in a way where we can have AI usage that we can teach students and the teachers can trust SAAI. So here this brings us to competitive advantages where the teachers control, it's up to teachers' discretion how much AI and what AI is allowed in a fully locked down environment teachers can trust, where in a way that students can not only learn how to use AI, but still develop those critical thinking skills that they need in today's modern world. We are the first of its kind, and we've interviewed 30 plus teachers, and we've built this software with teachers for other teachers. If awarded the 30K, here's exactly how we would spend it, but yeah, that's it. Thank you.
I'm gonna start. So how does it work against law? Why can't I just generate an essay using some AI system and then copy, like print it out and then just copy it by typing it into your system?
Yeah, so this actually blocks you from pasting in large amounts of content. And even if you do type it in word by word, like let's say you type it in word by word, there's an AI detector that runs. And once it'll not only tell you that it's detected, but it'll also flag the teacher. So this way, both parties know.
So essentially at the speed of the way that it's being typed.
Or the actual content that's written. If it's human generated or AI generated, we can check that.
Okay, thanks.
I'm curious, as you've talked to teachers and other people, if this set of functionality you have is important enough to overtake like all of the other things that a Google Docs or a Word provides for students, or integrations with other systems, et cetera. Is it a hot enough problem for them that they're willing to switch to a totally different tool that people aren't familiar with?
Yeah, we believe so. I talked to a couple teachers, and one teacher even noted 60% increase in this. And some teachers, like especially English teachers, have a passion for creative writing. And they really enjoy reading students' original thoughts. But when they just see a bunch of AI slop that like gets uploaded to their Dropbox, it like not only disappoints them, but it discourages them from making them assignments. And they're forced to just make them handwrite essays, and it's just not a modern day solution.
As a follow-up, how much of the other stuff, meaning like grading, turning in like types of features, do you think you need for this to be useful, or do you think it's just links to if just the writing happens in here? I'm thinking about like everything around it, like, oh, I grade in this tool, I upload to Dropbox or to Google Classroom, like turning in assignments. There's a whole bunch of tools that are connected to this. Do you think that this can stand on its own?
Could you rephrase that question?
I guess what I'm saying is like Google Docs and other things do a lot of other things that are integrated into tons of other software that teachers use. Like, do you think you have to build all of that, or do you think this can sort of stand on its own as a product?
I think we do have to build a little bit of that, but it should be pretty fast. And in the current state, you can currently communicate the teacher when you can upload through this software in the current state also.
Okay, maybe as a follow-up question. So, like, I guess challenge for you, right? Like, why not just go more general and say we're going to develop a software that tells if the end product is AI generated? It could be text, it could be image, but the ability to tell that, and videos actually also too, is actually going to be very important. So, have you guys thought through that lens?
Yeah. Could you rephrase that question? Sorry.
So sure. Okay, I guess too. So we've all heard about fake news, right? So you see a short video on Instagram, you don't even know if it's AI generated or if it's actually a video that somebody took. Could you think of a way of actually determining content is AI generated and flag it? And the essay could be the starting point, but like if you look at the end product, instead of looking at the process of how it's being written into your system, if you actually just look at the final essay, can you actually tell, could you develop a system to tell if the final product is AI generated?
Yes. Yeah. Just given the final essay, you can copy and paste, and you can even try this now with AI detectors. You can check if the whole thing was AI generated or certain parts of it are human generated. Yes.
So then why not just do that instead of this system?
Because this system, we're developing a way that teachers can enable students to learn how to use AI features if it's up to the teacher's discretion. So we want to develop not only a solution that checks and prevents AI cheating, but we also don't want students to fall off the curve, and we want them to learn how to use AI, right?
Got it, thanks.
All right. Thank you so much, you guys. All right, next up we have Vigr, and they are developing an agentic image generation tool that's designed to integrate directly with Photoshop workflows. Please welcome Vigr.
Hi, everyone. My name is Surya Narayanan Hari. I'm currently a fourth-year PhD student here at Caltech in the Thompson Lab, and I'm here to present to you a project I've been working on called Vigr. My research is on computer vision. For my research, I've had to develop a lot of synthetic images. And I'll show you some examples of this, but I found that current tools are either not good enough, and I'll show you some examples why, or are too expensive, sometimes both. Let me tell you how I propose we can solve this problem. It should be of no surprise to you that models are only as good as the data that goes into them. This is why there are multiple billion-dollar-plus companies whose sole business plan it is to make quality training data. There are other companies, on the other hand, that make tools to make data, but cannot give this data to model trainers because of license restrictions. This is where we come in. We believe there's this immense opportunity to create tools, not for people, but for agents to make synthetic data. Let me walk you through a story. A week ago, I was making some images of people playing baseball with tomatoes. Now, as you can see, I use the state-of-the-art models, Nano Banana, Pro, etc., OpenAI, Image 4.1, 5.4, all of the above. And I found that a lot of the models fundamentally lacked understanding of baseball. they induced biases and were just not good enough, right? And so how can we solve this problem? I argue we need quality data. Model companies, model trainers have run out of quality data by having scraped the internet and are now resorting to manual data curation, and we believe agents can solve this problem much faster, much cheaper, and much more controllable in a much more controllable way. So first, we're going to make agents and all the infrastructure that goes with it for labeling and manually verifying data. We're going to create a data engine that streams this data to model trainers and acquires and puts proper licenses out. And then we're going to work with model trainers to get the specific data they need to make their models better in the directions they want to go in. The market is massive, and I don't need to convince you of this. We believe that if these models can attack as much as just video games, ads, film, TV, and graphic design, it's trillions of dollars added to the world's GDP. And we believe we can capture a significant portion of this. The current players today are largely capitalizing on wage disparities between first and third world countries in order to use humans to manually annotate and generate data. We believe humans are built for better things. And largely, data production of quality data is still manual. This is why we believe we can give agents state-of-the-art tools to produce cheap and high-quality data. Our first product is a synthetic data image data generator. So while the current workflow goes from a prompt to an image, what we want to make is something that first makes a scaffold of this image, has another agent come in and find objects to fit that scaffold, another agent come in, move those objects around, and replace objects that might be a better fit for the scaffold, another agent come in and expand this canvas to find similar objects that better fit this canvas, and a fifth agent finally come in and paint this image. As you can see, this workflow, much more agentic, much more controllable, and also much more amenable to changes at each point. Whatever I take home today will be used on key milestones to develop this demo to then raise funds at the end of the summer. We're going to build the agentic infrastructure with the key specific success metric of getting an image generator that is comparable to the state-of-the-art on this ELO benchmark of more than 1,200. We're then going to build this data agent such that the data we generate is cost-effective. And then we're going to work with model trainers to get pilots so that we can get into their training workflows. Every dollar we take home will be used for compute, GTM, and team. With that, I'd like to thank you for your time. And sorry, this is Baya. And while I take questions, I'd love for this video to play in the background of our demo.
I'm mesmerized by your video, sorry. So curious, so synthetic data, what is the type of image data where this kind of synthetic generation is not a good fit versus what are the types of use cases where it's a very strong fit?
That's a great question. So one place we'd absolutely not touch is health. There's no world in which I want to make agents put a tumor in somebody's lung where it doesn't already exist. One world where we think it's a great fit is something like training robotics, right? If I were to make an Amazon package appear on a shelf, I can very easily do that. I'm happy to give you some more examples.
Curious, there's one way to think about this business where you're in the synthetic data generation market. It's sort of, you're a new kind of Mercor or some other synthetic data provider. Well, that's manual, but you know you know what I mean. The other is use this as a way to build the world's greatest image model. Like,
that's exactly right.
Is that the direction you think you're headed in, or do you think this is a data play?
So that's a great question. I think there might be a great use case for trying to train our own models on this, and we believe that yes, that's actually a way in which we can convince model trainers to train on our data, and eventually there might be a compute constraint, but I'm wondering if there's a way in which we can, because a lot of the business model for Midjourney and these kinds of companies is relying on people making a lot of images. We wonder if there's a more general purpose way of going about it, like robotics or world models, but yes.
Just a follow-up question to that, because one gap that I could see that there's a big need for is as you have more robots doing more things, you need very specific training sets to train them to do what you want them to do and not do what you don't want them to do. And right now there are humans creating all of those images, and this seems like a much more seamless way. I guess what you're hearing is, if you focus in on where you can achieve the most discrete value for your company, instead of working with all these other folks to enable them, you likely will have a higher value creation.
That's
Very
exactly
cool.
right. Yeah, I completely agree with you. And the current best use case for vision models today is in robotics and world models, and we believe we can, game dev and graphic design, we believe we can unlock a ton of value there, replacing a lot of the existing tools that do that.
So there are problems that you mentioned that like humans are generating the data for. Are there a class of problems, and I think you touched on one, where we can't generate data for, and this is like humans are not able to generate data for. So even if you hired people, that would not be helpful.
So I think this is another great question. One of the things, if you think about it, in our lab we have Ina, who is a graphic design artist, and yeah, replacing her would be very difficult. It actually took me a colossal amount of money to make the logo for this particular presentation and the icon. And if you look carefully, you can still see off colors, right? And so I strongly believe that we want to live in a world where we can automate high value work, and people, artists, graphic artists, illustrators can leverage AI tools. And if you've ever used Firefly, Adobe Firefly, it's very bad. So I don't know if that answers your question.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we are powering through these, and we are coming up on our second to last team. I would like to present Foundation, who will be presenting their work on an instruction set architecture design. Sorry, you guys, on an instruction set architecture design for data centers. So please join me in welcoming Foundation.
Hi everyone, thank you. My name is Volkan Gürses. I'm a PhD candidate in electrical engineering and physics here in Professor Olya Ajmi's group, and I also worked as a visiting researcher at NVIDIA. I'm going to present on our essentially semiconductor IP platform that we call Foundation. The hair on fire problem that everybody probably heard millions of times about is essentially the immense scaling of AI workloads in data centers, where it has led to essentially a problem of power grid bottleneck. And if the current projections continue, we are expected to reach essentially the US power consumption in the next 5 years, which clearly will lead to tapering of this basically scaling. This led to an industry-wide basically direction to go more heterogeneous in the architectures that are being developed. So there has been a Cambrian explosion in different processor architectures, as well as going more distributed sort of processors that requires more specialization to reduce the energy costs and increase the throughput of these AI workloads. You can see in the last 20 years there has been a significant increase in the last decade with the AI workloads. We basically went from 1 architecture to 44 architectures, and this number is growing. This is where semiconductor IP is very critical. As the heterogeneity in the market increases and the dominance of single player like NVIDIA potentially decreases, the IP that's developed that will make these process architectures compatible with data centers is going to create a lot of the value. And semiconductor IP market is essentially sitting at the crossroads of 2 revolutions. One is AI for chip design is reducing the head count and how these chips are being designed, as well as the increase in essentially the compute demand is increasing more players to come into market. This is basically resulting of increased demand with lower spending from a semiconductor IP business perspective. So the timing is perfect for this right now. There's significant scaling, and you hear news about significant deals being made with the frontier AI labs and these chip makers. And a lot of the value essentially goes into the semiconductor IP that's developing these chips. Our market is basically up to $1 trillion market with semiconductor sales worldwide. The semiconductor IP kind of captures like around 20 billion of that. And we hope to essentially very conservatively get 1% of that. That could lead to 200 million ARR. Our customer discovery is going to be essentially targeting talent-scarce companies that has very few chip designers in the domains that we operate in. And we have 3 beachhead domains where essentially improving latency and essentially reducing energy consumption is very critical. And we already have 2 design partners already ready to deploy and essentially 3 more in conversation. Our business plan with this is with the 50 mid-sized chip companies, we can essentially get design partnership at $5 million per deal. And with a 6-month tape-out cadence, we can essentially get to the ARR value that we intend to get. The Caltech expertise we have and are targeting this like heterogeneous sort of computing market that is constantly growing. We believe we have the essentially best positioning to capture a lot of this emerging value. And there's a significant amount of essentially Caltech IP that we can leverage especially in the interconnect space as well as the networking side that we can deploy. The milestones we have are clear in the sense that the first 2 design partnerships that we already have, we want to turn into concrete deals and get to 1 million ARR in the next, essentially over the summer. And we want to turn and productize these IP blocks to have essentially a portfolio and basically go for a major chip maker partnership like NVIDIA. And then eventually we can hopefully tie all of this IP together in an instruction set architecture that will essentially turn potentially this company into an ARM-like model. And we will have an heterogeneous and domain-specific IP platform. In conclusion, we are basically leveraging the 2 very huge market shifts in software and semiconductors. We are differentiating our IP platform, going for this heterogeneous computing approach. And eventually, this is sort of an emerging sort of idea, but the transition from early semiconductor companies going from fab to fabless chip companies can basically make new companies to go from having individual chip designers in shop to contracting like semiconductor IP platforms like ours to make designless chip companies in the future. If you have any questions, I can take them. Thank you for your attention.
Awesome progress. Question about design partners. So what exactly are they building? Are they super narrow, specific chip designs, or are they companies like a Grok trying to build like a different kind of general purpose AI chip?
Yeah, so one design partner we have is essentially targeting edge AI, and they're developing basically inference chips. And one specific problem that they're trying to solve is as they go into like multiple chiplet architectures, the interconnect layer of that is a big problem. So we are, for example, solving that problem for them. The other design partner is looking at more data center kind of developing AI inference chips for data centers. And again, the interconnect is a big problem in that space. So as we discover more and more design partners, essentially the networking layer is something that we are seeing as a significant problem that we're solving, which my PhD was on as well. So.
Just a bit about how you got there for the creation and how you bound it. So when someone's designing a chip, they have to think about where they want to send that chip, what foundry they're going to use, what are the boundaries of the current costs that they want to achieve for that chip, and all these other wonderful things. So how did you build that into that design work frame? Do they basically just pull and say, these are the constraints that I have, this is the cost I want to achieve at set, and then this is how what I need to have as an outcome? Is it very simple and easy, or do you still need a chip designer, I guess is my question.
The way we work with them is essentially they have very clear specs that they want to achieve. So they start off with, they already usually have a foundry that they always work with, and they have like a 6-month tape-out cadence with that foundry. So we already know basically there's a process design kit from that foundry that gives us like a lot of the baseline information about what they can achieve. From then, we basically meet with their team and like we understand what these specs need to be achieved to meet their benchmark. And then we go in and can design, which is basically like me in this case, I can design this chip for them and then offer that solution to them. Yeah.
The existing ISA market, how top heavy is it? Are you competing with like a small number of people who work in that space? Is it mostly ARM, or are there a lot of companies that do this?
It is a bit top heavy. ARM is a significant like player in that space, although ARM is targeting a lot more on the CPU side. And this market shift in semiconductors is kind of changing that a little bit, where basically this huge increase in the number of processor architectures is causing new ISAs to kind of like start off. So we are hoping that we might be able to capture some of that value generation in the next 5 years.
So the way to think about this is ARM for this new kind of
AI
workload
workloads.
and instructor,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
for AI workloads, GPU style
Yes.
stuff. Okay.
What's the biggest risk in your view for the company?
I think the biggest risk is that whatever semiconductor IP that we develop needs to be productized, in the sense that you can solve customer problems, but if you stay sort of incoherent across different blocks, you might turn into a consulting or just like services company. So the IP blocks that we develop need to be productized to be reused across different customers. And if we can create a portfolio that gets tied together with this kind of ISA North Star, we might be able to scale things and grow significantly. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we are on our final team. Reroute Bio is developing protein circuits that selectively induce tumor cell death. Please welcome Reroute Bio.
The survival rates for many cancers have stagnated over the last 50 years. Hi, I'm Andrew, and this is Lucas. Together, we're future co-founders of Reroute Medicines. And today, we're really excited to share with you our vision of creating a new class of cancer therapies that can actually eliminate cancer, not just slow them down. Oncogenes drive uncontrolled proliferation of cancer cells. Targeted therapies seek to inhibit these oncogenes with the goal of selectively inhibiting tumors. The problem is that targeted therapies are very susceptible to resistance. You can actually see this in a very simple experiment where we co-culture tumor cells in red and healthy cells in green. What you can see is that in the middle plot is that cells don't get actually killed, they just get inhibited. And this is because cancer cells are very adaptive. They can oftentimes restore other pathways that come in and restore proliferation. So we're developing a new type of therapeutic modality called therapeutic protein circuits, which seeks to directly reroute oncogenes to cell death. As you can see in this movie, circuits are highly potent, directly eliminating tumor cells in culture while sparing healthy cells, leaving no resistant colonies behind. So we deliver our proteins using mRNA LNPs. This is the same technology that was used in the COVID vaccines. So actually, the drug that you see in the middle is a RAS inhibitor. RAS is by far and away the most commonly mutated human oncogene. In fact, you might have heard RAS in the news just 3 days ago because a breakthrough drug called daraxonrasib just doubled the median overall survival time of pancreatic patients from 7 months to 14 months. While this is very meaningful for patients, I think this also underscores the idea that this is only 14 months to live and resistance is inevitable.
So the circuit technology that we are building is really based on decades of experience by Michael Elowitz, a professor here at Caltech and HHMI investigator who initiated the field of synthetic biology and biological circuits. We will initially develop our circuits for RAS-driven colorectal liver metastasis, or short CRLM. CRLM is an ideal lead indication. First, liver delivery with established LNP chemistry is highly efficient and already de-risked. Second, the median overall survival time after chemo is still less than 9 months. And finally, even last-line treatment alone is highly commercially viable, and we actually validated the feasibility of our patient stratification strategy with diverse KOLs. Our lead circuits to tackle CRLM combine a split effector protein with mutant RAS-specific binders. The way this works is once delivered in healthy cells, these binders do not bind to RAS and the effectors just remain inactive. In cancer cells, as you can see on the right, that have mutant RAS in contrast, the binders do bind to RAS. And since mutant RAS is clustered on the cell membrane, the split effectors come into close proximity, they reconstitute and then actively kill the cancer cell.
So over the course of the past 5 years and over 700 experiments, we've really built out deep expertise as well as an engineering infrastructure to design these therapeutic circuits. And so the question is, how do they even work? How well do they work? So we can test circuits in a very aggressive multifocal liver tumor model. On the left here, you can see untreated tumors from mice. Each mice has about a dozen to hundreds of tumors that grow unchecked. On the right, what's very striking to see is that with systemically delivered LNP circuits, we can almost near completely eliminate all tumors. What about resistance? So again, we can test the circuits in a resistant model. So remember daraxonrasib, this is the RAS inhibitor that just doubled overall survival for pancreatic patients. Well, in this very challenging, widely validated model of resistance, daraxonrasib has basically no efficacy at all, while circuits retain excellent potency. Finally, how generalizable are these results? What we can see is across diverse tumor types and also mechanisms of resistance to inhibitors, we can see that for drugs, they don't achieve meaningful elimination of these cells, while circuits can achieve near complete elimination of the same cells.
Our goal is to raise seed financing at the end of the year, and there are two key things that are still missing for that. First, we want to validate our circuits explicitly in a mouse model of CRLM, our lead indication. And then secondly, Bill Gross funding could uniquely enable essential non-academic work related to incorporation, immigration, IP, etc. The seed funds itself will be used to advance our CRLM circuits to DC stage, and we have also detailed milestones for that. So let's summarize. Circuits are as potent as chemotherapies, as specific as targeted therapies. In contrast to cell and immunotherapies, they can both access intracellular targets and are also cheap to manufacture. But most importantly, circuits have the potential to finally overcome resistance. Looking ahead, we've designed a development path that enables us to stepwise de-risk our platform. And our ultimate dream is to develop a single, off-the-shelf, pan-cancer circuit that can target and eliminate the vast majority of all human cancers.
So what we always come back to with these solutions with circuits is how can you get a sufficient amount of delivery to enough cells to make a difference? And I think your in vivo data is very promising, but talk a little bit more about how the field has evolved and how about local administration is going to help you get there.
Okay, so yeah, that's exactly still the biggest risk with this technology, and I think there are really two things to mention here. So first of all, I mean, the field of LNP delivery has massively improved, and there are a lot of people working on this, and the reason we chose liver as a first indication is because you can already get basically very high penetrance in these model systems. The second thing is actually our circuits can trigger very different outputs. And one of the outputs that they can trigger is pyroptotic cell death, which is a mode of cell death that can lead to active immune recruitment. And in the literature it has been shown that you can basically with this eliminate cancer cells that didn't even receive your circuits.
And then one more thing is that actually we know this is a giant problem for us, and so we are very actively looking out and talking to companies about this. Just earlier today, actually at noon, we talked to the CEO of Genevent, as you know, is the leading LNP provider, and so we are very aware of this issue.
Can you talk me through again the design? So you have a split protein detecting RAS, mutant RAS. I'm missing the circuit part of this. So, okay, how is the circuit going to help you as this cancer cell mutates and develops additional mutations? Is the single circuit supposed to be able to capture those evading cells, or walk me through the logic of this?
Yeah, so this is actually a really fundamental difference between drugs and circuits. So with drugs, all it takes is a single copy of a drug that can mutate away from the drug for you to get resistance. Because we're not inhibiting RAS, we're sensing RAS, you actually have to mutate away every single copy of RAS for us to lose our sensitivity. And what's actually really important to know is in these RAS mutant cancers, they oftentimes amplify their gene copy. And so you'll have about 30 to 50 copies of RAS. The odds of every single copy being mutated away is very low.
So the active sensor is picking up different mutant brass. And so
Yes, we designed them to be broadly specific to all majorly clinically relevant oncogenic RAS mutations, yeah.
Okay, but then it's a split protein. Where is the circuit part of it? I don't see a circuit in here.
Yeah, so that's actually an interesting thing. Initially, these circuits were developed with multiple proteins, and just to make them more clinically relevant, we have condensed this actually down. We can encode this in a single protein, and the effector part here is like a split caspase that basically gets reconstituted and then executes cell death.
Right, so you're essentially delivering a protein that's going to be expressed. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
With that, I would like to thank all of our finalists for their thoughtful, impressive presentations. You all did a wonderful job, so thank you very much. Next, the audience will have the opportunity to vote for your favorite team, and you'll watch the first video in a series of highlighting that's highlighting all the innovations that are coming out of Caltech and JPL. With that, I would like to invite the judges to follow me to the deliberation room. The winners will be announced in a little bit in the breezeway during the reception. And at this time, I would also like to invite Brianna Chu from our office, who will be leading this portion of the event. So thank you all.
Hello, everyone. Can we just give all of our finalists one last round of applause? Come on now. Thank you all so much. Thank you, everybody who was able to make it here, right here in Gen 100, and everybody who is watching online. I want to invite all of you to take out your phones if you would like to vote for your fan favorite. If you were here last year, you'll know that we introduced this fan favorite award so that you guys who were watching could also weigh in on your particular favorite team. So let me just give you all a moment to... So while you vote, we have a very special sneak preview of a video series that our office has been working on. If you're a longtime friend of the office, you already know what tech transfer is, likely. You know how our office is the bridge between technology that happens in the lab and technologies that we use every day and maybe can't imagine living without. But we know that not everyone is as familiar with tech transfer as we are. I certainly didn't know anything about tech transfer when I actually joined the Office of Tech Transfer. Maybe a little bit of a problem. But we wanted to work on bringing the stories of the Caltech and JPL inventors and researchers to you so that you get the story behind how some of these amazing, incredible inventions that you may not even know are Caltech and JPL technologies came to be and what happened to get them there. And one of those is the phone that you just used, is in the phone that you just used to scan this QR code. So, without further ado, we would love to show you this video about the CMOS image sensor.
Like it or not, we live in a world full of cameras. In your phone, your doorbell, your car, and your glasses. But this age of recording everything started with one overlooked invention, built for space missions, not selfies. In the 1990s, 2 engineers and a small team took on $1 billion challenge and unleashed the chip that would shrink cameras forever. It took a decade of rejection, buried patents, government red tape, and now it's inside almost every device you own. This is the untold origin of the CMOS image sensor, the tiny chip that rewired how humans connect, record, and remember. So, what is the journey a new technology takes to go from invention to changing the way we live? And more importantly, how do we make sure we don't miss the next one? It was the 1990s. NASA was planning something big, a mission to photograph Saturn up close, the kind of mission that could rewrite what we know about life in the universe. But there was one massive problem. Literally, massive. Cameras. These were space-rated beasts, each one as heavy as a mini fridge. And when you're launching a spacecraft, every extra kilogram isn't just expensive, it's a potential mission killer. NASA needed a camera that could survive the brutal conditions of space without weighing down the entire rocket. That challenge sparked a revolution no one saw coming.
We need to be able to build things faster, not take years and years on some projects, and how to build them cheaper as well.
That's where our story begins, with a handful of engineers at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, led by Eric Fossum. JPL is where they design, build, and operate the rockets and rovers for space exploration.
We are really an operating division of Caltech, and then we're funded and we're totally part of NASA. So you got these three pieces that come together, which just allow us to do the incredible things that really the country charters us to do.
Those engineers were trying to solve a space problem with something no one had quite seen before.
Well, I suggest you gentlemen invent a way to put a square peg in a round hole.
It was the start of something huge. Well, tiny, actually.
I got the call from JPL, like, would you like to come work here?
Well, it was a dream of a lifetime getting a job at JPL.
These are two of the engineers who made it possible for you to take a selfie.
My name is Eric Fossum. I invented the CMOS image sensor, which is the chip in your camera, your cell phone, one of these, and it converts light into digital signals that a computer can understand.
My name is Sabrina Kemeny. I am an entrepreneur and formerly an electrical engineer. But really my love and my knowledge and my base was really in imaging.
NASA was launching a spacecraft with cameras, of course. It doesn't want to see where you've been and where you're going, and especially out in outer space. And those cameras built on CCD technology were quite large.
The CCDs were custom designed, and then they had to be diced and then put onto an integrated focal plane array. That was expensive.
Dan Golden, NASA's administrator at the time, issued a new mandate. Faster, better, cheaper. That's when Eric went on a trip to Norway.
I had a day off, and so I got on a train going to Bergen.
It was on that train, watching the cold landscape rush by, that Eric began sketching out an idea. A new kind of chip that could do what others couldn't.
That was sort of the seed of the idea.
Back at JPL, Eric, Sabrina, and a small team started testing, building, trying. And right away, they had results.
We tried a couple of small chips to test out the idea, and we plugged them in, and they worked the first time.
It was fantastic. When we got the first chip back and it actually worked, and it was like, oh my God, this is fabulous.
But once it worked, it was wonderful, because now you were not at the mercy of the domino of passing the charge from one device to the other over a long chain that made things much more complicated in the long run.
All right, slow down. Maybe this is a good time to explain how the tech works. CMOS stands for Complementary Metal Oxide Semiconductor, basically a way to build a chip. And nobody had ever tried to use it for digital imaging. So how did Eric Fossum do it? Imagine it's raining on a football field. Not water, photons. These little packets of light are falling all over the field, and each patch of grass has a person holding a bucket, catching that light. That's how an image gets formed. Different amounts of light landing in each bucket. Now, in the old days of CCD cameras, there was just one guy on the end of the field with a measuring stick. Every bucket had to be passed down the line, one by one, like a bucket brigade, until he could measure it. Slow, clunky, and spilling water all over the place, which for us means losing bits of data for your final image. But with Eric Fossum's CMOS technology, everyone on the field got their own measuring stick and a walkie-talkie. Now they could measure the photons right where they landed and radio in the results instantly.
And that's when we really knew we were onto something.
After years of work, their tiny team of engineers finally did it. A lightweight, low-power camera on a chip, ready for space.
We were trying to get them to adopt this technology that we thought was, the greatest thing since sliced bread, and they, weren't really that interested.
Wait, did she just say NASA wasn't interested?
Typically, space-related things are sort of the last to adopt new technology.
Scientists didn't know how it would handle the harsh environment of space. And that makes sense, right? If you're spending millions to send a camera into orbit, you want to make sure it works perfectly. What if you get blurry pictures? Worst case, you get no pictures at all. So, with all that uncertainty, NASA decided to stick with what they knew. And for a while, that's where the story could have ended. But behind the scenes, something else was happening.
We had other companies contacting us saying, well, we have this very specialized application that we really need a sensor for. Can you guys develop it?
Maybe like, why don't we do something with this technology?
In order to do that, though, they needed to work with Caltech's Tech Transfer Office.
Tech transfer, what it brings is an accelerated transfer and curated transfer from the lab to industry.
Meet Fred Farina, Chief Innovation Officer at Caltech's Tech Transfer Department. At the time, he had just started at Caltech under a guy named Larry Gilbert, who took notice of the tiny chip.
When Larry came to Caltech, we had never done tech transfer before in a formal way.
I was able to twist his arm into giving us an exclusive license.
With Caltech's brand new Tech Transfer Office up and running, Eric and Sabrina took the leap. They launched a tiny startup called PhotoBit, determined to bring their invention to the world. Behind the scenes, Tech Transfer helped with the real grind: patents, licensing, legal red tape, all the unglamorous stuff that turns a good idea into a real company. And then, people started realizing how their businesses could take advantage of the camera on a chip. Dentists used it to scan your teeth. Doctors used it in cameras you can swallow. And suddenly, webcams were everywhere.
Our first commercial success was with Logitech, which were the little small round cameras that went on top of PCs.
This is an old school Logitech webcam from about 1999.
Now, of course, we Zoom every 5 seconds, but that was the beginning of video conferencing.
But one application seemed ridiculous at the time.
People thought, why in the world would you want a camera on a telephone? A phone is to call people, a camera is to take pictures.
No one would ever use that, right?
But now a new generation of phones is about to hit the streets, and these handsets can send not only text, but take and send pictures as well.
An early motivation for putting a camera on a cell phone was so people could share their shopping finds with friends.
It seemed like not a great use of the sophisticated NASA technology, but the customer's always right.
And they were.
Sabrina and I were literally like looking across the table at each other saying, how do we grow this to 1,000 people? And we don't really have experience. Micron, a memory chip maker, wound up acquiring PhotoBit. It was a very positive outcome, but it was hard to kind of turn over our baby to somebody else to run. That was maybe the hardest part of all.
What started as a brick in NASA's pocket led to a train ride, which turned into a multi-billion-dollar industry, a world where everyone is being seen from a lens.
It's been fantastic for humanity to have all this imagery of everything that we do.
Very happy that it's being used for increasing people's security or safety or health. I had no idea how massively useful or ubiquitous the technology would be.
Over the last 30 years, Eric Fossum's tiny invention has completely reshaped how we capture the world. And while NASA may have passed on it at first, they eventually came around.
When we first started working on this technology, my thought was it had to go out into industry, but then eventually it would find its way back, just the way you described.
That's exactly what happened. Behind me right now, we're receiving data from the rover on Mars.
I watched that landing with the parachute coming
all
out.
All CMOS, all of it.
And I was just like, mission accomplished. I was really happy.
Touchdown confirmed.
The CMOS image sensor crossed the bridge. But that's just one story. The impact of tech transfer is everywhere, and there's world-changing research happening in university labs across the US right now.
I think humans generally are driven to new ideas and invention and creation. Our job is to try to take these inventions and turn them into commercial products that can benefit society more directly.
If you want tech transfer to be successful, give it to the engineer, the scientist, that has the fire in the belly that's going to make it happen.
This research will end up transforming the way we live, work, and connect, even if it's one photon at a time.
The second thing we want to show you is a little trailer about a new thing we're trying to do here as a podcast that we call the Einstein Suite, that's shot in the actual Einstein Suite at the Athenaeum, where we talk to faculty members in areas of interest that are current, like AI, quantum, other areas, and we try to ask them questions about where the technology is going, how it's just going to change society, the kind of jobs that it will create and eliminate, and all those questions that at the intersection of technology and culture that we're all interested in. So this is a trailer about that.
Some of the most important conversations about the future happen behind closed doors, where technologies that will define our lives tomorrow are already being discussed today. Welcome to the Einstein Suite. I'm Billy Zane, and I'm joined by my co-host, Fred Farina. Fred is the Chief Innovations Officer at Caltech, turning breakthrough research into real-world systems. I'm here to discover what happens when those systems leave the lab and enter our lives. Together, we're opening the door to conversations at the intersection of science, art, and culture. Filmed from the room Einstein himself stayed in while at Caltech, this is the Einstein Suite, the smartest room in the world.
All right, well, stay tuned for the first episode soon, and now I guess you're welcome to come outside for the reception, and as we await the judges to come back.